Hello crafters, another day, another delightful DIY. Today, we're crafting something that will brighten up any room, a cheerful DIY felt sunflower. Before we dive into the sunny petals and leafy greens, let's start with the base, the pot. Think of this part as the sturdy little home where our sunflower will bloom. Start by grabbing your gray wool roving. This will be the main color for our pot. Pull off a generous amount of wool. Don't worry about getting the exact size. You can always trim or add more as needed. Now, gently roll the wool between your hands into a rough cylinder shape, like a mini soda can. Once you're happy with the basic form, it's time to bring in your felting needle. Begin poking the wool repeatedly, up and down, always going in and out at the same angle. This is important. Inserting your needle and twisting or bending it can break the needle or cause the wool to misshape. Think of it like sewing straight in and out, nice and steady. As you continue poking, you'll notice the wool starts to compress and stiffen. That's exactly what we want. Keep felting all around the sides, top and bottom, turning the pot as you go to maintain an even, smooth surface. Don't rush. This part sets the foundation for your whole sunflower. Need a sturdier pot? Add more wool and repeat the same process. Want to decorate it? You can needle in streaks of colored wool, like orange, cream, or brown, to give it texture and flair, just like the design in the photo. Crafting tip. It's totally normal for your pot to look a little lumpy at first. Just keep poking and shaping. Felting is all about patience and practice. Now that we have our pot nice and sturdy, it's time to add a touch of greenery. This will give the base a more natural, lifelike look. Start by pulling off a small amount of bright green and dark green wool. These two shades will give you a more dimensional and realistic grass effect. Gently blend the colors together by teasing and pulling them with your fingers until the fibers are loosely mixed. You don't have to overblend. You still want some variation in the tones to mimic real grass. Once your greens are blended, place the wool gently on top of the pot, right where the flower stem will be anchored. Start poking the wool in with your felting needle, working in small sections. Go around the top edge of the pot and inward toward the center. Now it's time to start building the heart of our sunflower, the seed base. Begin by grabbing your orange wool. You'll want to pull off a medium-sized piece, enough to create a flat, rounded base that will eventually sit at the center of your sunflower petals. Start by gently rolling the wool into a rough ball, then press it down slightly to flatten it into a coin shape, just like a thick button. Using your felting needle, begin poking the wool steadily all around the surface. Be sure to keep your needle going in and out at the same angle to maintain a smooth, even finish. Focus on shaping the edges, keeping them rounded and neat while gradually compressing the wool to make it firm. You want the piece to hold its shape, but still have a bit of softness, just like a real sunflower center. Once your orange circle is nicely felted and evenly shaped, it's time to add the seed details. For this, take your yellow wool and pull off tiny bits. Really small tufts will do the trick. Roll each little piece between your fingers to form a seed-like shape, then place it randomly on top of the orange base. There's no need to make the seeds perfectly spaced or uniform. This part should feel natural and organic, just like real sunflower seeds. Begin poking each yellow tuft gently into the orange wool. You can add as many or as few as you like. Some crafters prefer a neat circular pattern, while others go for a scattered look. Now, let's bring our sunflower to life by crafting its bright, beautiful petals. Start by pulling off a piece of yellow wool. This will form one petal, so aim for a small to medium amount, just enough to shape a single petal. Begin felting by gently rolling the wool into a rough teardrop or leaf shape, then start poking it with your needle. As always, remember to poke straight in and out to avoid bending or breaking the needle. Shape the wool as you go, narrow at one end and round it at the other. You want each petal to have a soft point and a slight curve, just like real sunflower petals. Take your time with each one, felting both sides to make it firm and smooth. Once you're satisfied with the shape and texture, set it aside and move on to the next. Repeat this process until you have around 10 petals. You can make a few extras just in case you want a fuller bloom or need a backup. Now it's time to attach the petals to your sunflower seed base, the orange circle you finished earlier. Pick up one petal and place its narrow end slightly under the edge of the base. Begin gently poking it into place, making sure it's secure. Don't rush. Take your time to ensure a firm attachment. Grab the next petal and overlap it slightly over the first one. This layering creates a natural, blooming effect. Continue this process, attaching each petal one by one, working your way around the seed base. As you go, keep the spacing consistent and continue overlapping each new petal with the previous one. Once all your petals are attached, take a moment to inspect the flower. If any petals feel loose, simply reinforce them by gently poking around their base. You can also lightly felt around the edges to blend them into the seed base for a more seamless look. Want to add even more dimension? Try adding a second layer of slightly smaller petals underneath or between the first set. Now that we've completed the petals, let's move on to crafting the stem, the support that will proudly hold your sunflower upright. Start by grabbing a generous amount of bright green wool roving. This will form the main stem, so be sure to pull enough to create a long strip that reaches from the base of your flower head down to the pot. If you're not sure about the length, it's better to start a bit longer. You can always trim it later. Begin by gently rolling the wool between your palms to form a long, cylindrical shape, similar to a straw or a pipe cleaner. Once you have the general form, start felting the wool using your needle. Work slowly and steadily, poking all around the strip to compress it. You'll want the stem to be firm but slightly bendable, just like a real flower stem. As you felt, turn the wool occasionally to keep the shape even. Focus on keeping the thickness consistent from top to bottom, but you can also taper one end slightly if you want it to look more natural when attaching to the flower head. Once your stem is shaped and sturdy, set it aside for a moment and prepare the leaves. Take a small amount of the same green wool and roll it lightly into a flat oval or teardrop shape. This will form your first leaf. Using your felting needle, start poking around the edges and toward the center, gradually defining the shape. You want to keep the tip of the leaf pointed and the base slightly rounded. Repeat the same process to make a second leaf. This time, use a bit more wool and make it slightly larger than the first one. Having two different sizes helps give the sunflower a more dimensional, organic look, just like how real leaves vary in nature. Once both leaves are shaped and felted, it's time to attach them to the stem. Decide where you'd like the leaves to sit. Usually, they look most natural when placed at different heights and slightly angled. Position the smaller leaf near the top third of the stem. Hold it in place and begin felting it gently into the stem, making sure it's securely attached. Do the same for the larger leaf, placing it a bit lower and on the opposite side to create balance and a realistic appearance. After both leaves are attached, you can go over the entire stem and leaf area with a few more pokes to smooth out any bumps and strengthen the connections. If needed, add a thin layer of green wool around the base of the leaves to help them blend seamlessly into the stem. Now, you've got a strong, leafy stem ready to support your sunflower in full bloom. Now it's time to bring everything together, the moment your sunflower finally comes to life. Start by taking the sunflower head you've already created and the stem with attached leaves. Hold the flower head gently and position the tapered end of the stem at the back center of the sunflower's seed base, the orange circle. This will serve as the connection point where the stem meets the flower. To secure it, grab a small amount of bright green wool, place it over the joint where the stem meets the flower head, and begin poking it gently but firmly with your needle. This layer acts like a binding wrap. It not only holds the parts together, but also blends the connection smoothly, so it looks neat and natural. Continue poking all the way around until the stem feels firmly attached and doesn't wobble. Next, we'll attach the whole flower to the pot you made at the start of this project. Carefully decide where you'd like your sunflower to sit. A central position usually works best, but feel free to tilt it slightly to one side if you want a more playful or dynamic look. Take the bottom end of the stem and gently push it into the center of the pot, allowing it to sink in slightly so it stands upright. Use your felting needle to secure the base of the stem to the pot by poking around the area where the two connect. For extra stability, wrap a bit more gray or green wool around the connection point and poke it in, helping it blend into the pot while reinforcing the attachment. Give the entire flower a gentle shake. If anything feels loose, don't worry. Just add a bit more wool and continue poking until every piece feels secure. Now for the fun part, decorating your sunflower pot. Add a layer of tiny felted pebbles using gray, brown, or white wool. Just roll small bits of wool into balls and felt them into place around the base of the stem to mimic stones. For a more natural look, use bits of green wool to create grass or moss around the edges of the pot. You can even blend light and dark greens for texture. Feel free to add any small accents that reflect your style, maybe a felted leaf or a tiny heart. There are no rules here, so let your imagination guide you. Now you're done. Display your sunflower felt proudly on your shelf, desk, or anywhere that needs a touch of handmade sunshine. Flower.